Hello, welcome to this panel, which is Associate Faculty in the Culture of Care. We want to make sure that associate faculty feel heard and taken care of. And on the panel today, we have Tony Farrell, who is the Dean of the Colleges of Arts and Sciences. So you will probably interact with somebody with either him or somebody who's interacted with him. We have James Bond, student advocate, love the name. And we have Catherine Myers, who's the manager of faculty support and development. Did I get that one right, Catherine?
That's fine. I have many titles.
Okay. Well, so all three are going to spend 10 minutes each talking, and we'll start with Tony, and then we'll go to James, and then we'll go to Catherine, and then we'll open it up for questions.
All right. You want me to go ahead and get started, Diane?
Yeah, please.
Awesome. So hello, everybody. I'm Tony Farrell. I'm the Dean, as Diane mentioned, Dean for the College of Arts and Sciences. And I have been with UAGC for over a decade. And I measure my time here by the age of my youngest son. He was born 2 weeks after I joined then Ashford University. And he's going to be 11 in April. So I can't believe I have been here this long. It has been the greatest professional journey of my life. I love being here. This is a tremendous institution. And as we have pivoted to UAGC, it has, I think, our path and our continued growth as an institution has certainly continued to evolve and gotten a lot better. And the support that we have for students, for faculty, and for each other has really increased over the last several years. So that being said, Diane reached out to me a couple months ago to be a part of this session. And I'll say that there was maybe some, I guess, miscommunication on my part. So I was not identified as part of being a panelist. So if you're here and didn't know I was going to be here, well, I'm happy to be here. And so my job today, or my goal today, is to bring a little bit more understanding from an institutional and academic perspective of what culture of care is, maybe what it's not, and to really think about how we as an academic community support our students. And so one of the things that I want to share right off the bat is, if you attended our keynote this morning, Adriana mentioned right off the bat, it was very, very, I guess, pointed in her comments about the proactive nature of faculty to support students. And that is really, really important. And it is really foundationally what the culture of care is that we are, as a community, and not just faculty, all aspects of the institution, that we are proactive in supporting our students to be successful. And so I'm going to share some slides about our students, and then go through just a brief rundown of what culture of care is. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Okay. Hopefully you guys all see that. There we go. Okay. Everybody see my screen? Diane, I'm looking at you. Okay. So this was part of a presentation that was given several weeks ago by Matt Phillips from our Alumni and Career Services team, and Dr. Allison Reef, who's the Associate Director of our Academic Engagement Center. And thinking about who our students are at UAGC. I'm not going to read the slide to you. You can take a second or two to go over, but we have what I venture to say, I don't want to call it a non-traditional student population, because I think this is really the state of higher education. This is, in many ways, this is a reflection of many institutions throughout our country. There are two areas that I really want to point out to this in this session, is that excuse me, that 50% of our students are Pell Grant eligible students. I'm sorry, I'm gonna get a drink of water real quick. So 50% of our students are Pell Grant receiving students. And then 26% of our students are receive some kind of military funding. And so when we think about that, that is almost 3/4 of our population that might exhibit some characteristics that would really, I would say, require or would, create an environment where they would need some flexibility within the learning environment. So a Pell Grant eligible student roughly is a student who, based upon their income and their life circumstances, is somebody that could potentially be living in poverty. So if we think about these students, and then certainly our military students who have so many requirements outside the classroom, this is a really a significant portion of our student population that has some really different and specific needs than maybe the 18 to 22-year-old. And again, these are our students. So these are the students that come to UAGC. These are the students that thrive at UAGC. And these are the students that our faculty should certainly care about and really, I would say, go the extra mile to support these students in their paths to complete their degrees. So that being said, what I want to also point out is that when we think about the culture of care, I'm going to move to my next slide. So we think about the culture of care. The culture of care is an initiative that has its genesis way back in 2014. And so in 2014, in the old College of Education at Ashford University, we titled this type of intervention approach, this is Save One. And as an institution, or as a college, and at the time I was the dean of the College of Education, we did not have additional funding to support Save One. This was an initiative where we really hope to motivate our faculty, our full-time faculty, our associate faculty, to identify a student in every course that might need a little extra help to help them get through the course and be successful. And we had tremendous, I would say, impact and success through the Save One program. And we continue to embrace that approach over a period of time. And then in 2018, the Department of General Education initiated another initiative called Project Finish Line, or at the time it was initially named Project Pineapple. And so Project Finish Line was the way in which, in some of our quantitative courses mainly, that faculty could reach out to students who were just missing maybe a final assignment or needed to revise that final assignment to be successful in order to move on and being proactive. So that really had a significant impact as well. Students who were allowed a little extra time to complete maybe that week 5 assignment became very successful, passed the course, completed the course, and persisted. So in 2021, we kind of merged some of the significant pieces of, I would say, Save One and Project Finish Line in a way that we wanted to support and really embrace the disposition of our faculty and how we approach our students in a more proactive manner. but also creating some systems and requirements within courses that would allow our faculty, our initially within our gen ed courses, our first 4 or 5 courses, the ability to provide a little extra support, to provide a little extra time. And that's where Power of One kind of certainly emerged. And then as we stand in where we're at in 2022, and this really launched with the new course requirements in 2022, is Culture of Care. And so with Culture of Care, one of the things that we really want to emphasize is that we are in a space where we have to take care of each other, and have to, certainly for our associate faculty who are attending this session, that we have to embrace the fact that we have to take care of our associate faculty, because if our associate faculty are feeling taken care of, if they are feeling that they are heard and engaged, that they are going to support our students. And at the end of the day, and I mentioned this in my presentation yesterday, as it relates to the decisions as a leader that I make within this institution, is that foundationally, my why is our students. I look at a student who attends University of Arizona Global Campus as making a choice to come here, and that completing a degree could be the most powerful thing that could happen to that student and to that student's family. So every decision that I hope to make really has the student in mind. But that being said, I know that we, as an academic community, we have to take care of each other and take care of full-time faculty, support staff, associate faculty directly, because our associate faculty are the ones that really are on the front lines. They are the ones that connect with students more often and have the most meaningful and deep connections to our students. And I'm probably going over time, so I apologize. So I'm going to, as we look into what Culture of Care is and what it is not. So we talk about life events that happen. It is, we don't necessarily require our students to disclose the life events that they're going through. We want them to feel safe to request help as needed. We also, when we coach our students, we're assuming students' question is not insubordinate or a personal affront. We have to make sure that we have this disposition of care. And then we're not advising students about financial aid. And then if you need support within the classroom to support our students, then reach out to advisement, reach out to access and wellness. But the biggest thing here is Culture of Care is not giving students grades that do not reflect their competence with material. Okay, and this is probably the main point that I want to make, and then I will turn the presentation over to my colleagues, is that the Culture of Care is not lowering of standards. I mean, we want students to be successful. We want to provide students with a little extra time and support to complete assignments as needed. However, we want to make sure that our students are mastering the learning outcomes of a course, and if they complete a course, that they are successful and have achieved all of the learning that is certainly desired within the course. And so that is the biggest thing. And so one of the things too that before I turn this over is that just know that as academic affairs, academic leadership, understand that there's nuances that happen in this type of initiative, and that we are certainly in a space of continuous reflection and improvement. And so as we continue to have our bi-monthly PLCs around culture of care and thinking about teaching requirements, best practices, things like that. Your voice is important and it needs to be heard. We desire to hear from you so that if there are areas that need to be refined within, let's say, course requirements, that you have an opportunity to share that, because at the end of the day, if you aren't, again, without being redundant, if you feel like you're not being taken care of, then it would be very difficult for us to assume that if you're not happy and engaged, that you are not going to continue to support our students in the best way possible. Because again, my hope is that all of you feel like you're taken care of, that you're heard, that you're cared about, so that you can be the best instructor, faculty member within our institution. So I'm gonna be quiet. I think I've talked too much, Diane, and I will pass it on. So
I'm gonna give it to James. I wanted to say one thing, and Linda's here, so I hope she's ready for this. But I asked her, I live in a time card state, and I asked her about when I give a faculty, not faculty, excuse me, students incompletes, you can get a time card for the work you have to do after the course is over to finish up. And yeah, she'd be the best person to talk to. Sorry, Linda, but yeah, at least you got noticed. And now we welcome James, who is one of the greatest people I have had the pleasure of meeting here.
Thank you so much. So first, I want to start by telling you a little bit about my primary role with the university. I'll talk a little bit about what the role of adjunct faculty provides for me and means to me. And then I'm going to share kind of my approach to working with students, how I integrate the culture of care and feel like I'm doing my job as a faculty member and supporter of the student. So my primary role with the university as a student advocate, I'm gonna put in chat a link to our CETL page if anybody wants to take a look, and it also provides you a link to our online form if you need to refer a student to us. Basically, we work with students who have maybe mentioned suicidal tendencies or suicide ideation within an assignment or in conversation, students dealing with severe depression, victims of violence, grief and loss, child and elder, protected populations that are in a situation where they're suffering, homelessness, bizarre behavior. These are the types of reasons you might refer a student to us. Now, as you can imagine, my conversations with students day to day are mostly around these topics. And so being an adjunct faculty member for me allows me to keep a more holistic view of our students. I work with CHAMP sometimes, and that's another place where I get interactions with students that are more positive. Sometimes I get to see them, mentor them, just help them along their journey in a way that my regular job, while it's supporting students, everything is really dealing with students that are in just a really hard situation. And so this role for me just provides that ability to connect with students in a way that when I'm dealing with them in a very rough situation, I don't get the opportunity to do. So when culture of care came along, I think for me, what I was really looking at is how do I do the things that I need to do, communicate the things that I need to the student, these students of in different situations, different personalities. How can I make sure I'm being heard? And it brought me back to a situation that I'm going to share with you now. So previously to joining this institution for the second time, I've been building veteran centers in different universities. I've done about 3 different universities building their veteran centers. And that allowed me to really get close to the veteran students. Once they found out I was a veteran, I served 8 years myself. And especially in the second center where I had kind of already learned a lot and set up some things, we began really sharing. And one day, me and my wife, I forget what we were talking about. I think it was a student that I was having challenges with. And she said, well, you know, if he was a medic, you wouldn't be having any challenges. And I asked her to expand on that a little bit. And it turns out, you know, I didn't realize, but I had a strong bias towards medics. It's I think it dealt with my time in the service, yes, but the first students that I got really close with were medics, and just the things that they shared with me when I was not promoting, but you know, putting people in for awards, scholarships. The medic stuff was always different. And she had noticed, I think if somebody had asked me if I had biases towards any student, I would not have guessed medics because they were very different. Like I couldn't talk to them in the same way, but there was no way of me denying it once she pointed it out that was a fact. And so what I began doing is when I felt tension with a student, there's one medic I'm super fond of. He works the special forces now. We still talk to this day, but when I was having a challenge with a student, I would seriously ask myself, pretend they were a medic. If this was male, like, what would you really do? How would you approach this? And so I began applying that here when I found myself in challenges with students, and it's helped me just phrase things in ways when I'm having to tell students something difficult. For some reason, when I was communicating with medics, and like I said, they were all very different in their personalities and how I had to approach them. But I took the time to figure that out. And so I just try to make sure that I'm doing that there, that I'm doing that here with students that I'm having challenges with. And it's always about, so for instance, say I feel that a student's communication is disrespectful, is very aggressive, isn't conducive to what they're trying to do. I can communicate that in a way to them that talks about, hey, you know, when you're in a job, when you're in an interview, when you're even just trying to get something done with a business, the way you're approaching this right now makes me feel this way. I think if you're talking to somebody you want to employ you get help from, I imagine they're going to feel similarly. This is not conducive to your success. Let's talk about what's going on. That's an approach I would use depending on that student. Now, with others, I might have to do it another way. You know, I really do try to meet the students where they are. And so I'm going to finish this up with this because I think Tony hit on some really important points. And I just want to say, you know, for me, the culture of care is about the students' ultimate success. It's about why they're here to get the degree and what they expect to do with that. And one of the main reasons that I really enjoy teaching that entry point course is we can have those conversations and I can share with them, have you thought about this? Like, how are you you're working retail right now. You want to be a counselor. What communities are you putting in? Are you putting yourself in? How are you going to make the connections to get you here? Have you talked to career services? Please do not wait until you graduate to talk to career services about what you're going to do. Because yes, a degree is an important part of what you're trying to do, but it's not the only step. I'm going to tell you, I started school when I was 30. I served 8 years in the Army. I was going into the Border Patrol. I decided to do work study, and my supervisor, within about 2 months, she was like, boy, why are you going into the Border Patrol? I see you do this, this, this. If you don't take a typing class and apply for a job on here. Now that was not part of her role. It was not something that I think a lot of people would be comfortable doing. But I tell you, because she did that, I got to go talk to Congress about how the UC system treats military affiliated students. I've had the opportunity to build 3 centers. I've been on the board of 3 different military serving nonprofits. And I really believe her. And I had a biology teacher that I'll never forget. She gave me a Christmas card as class was ending. And she was like, you know, James, I really appreciate the way you kind of made the students more serious, because I was never really great at school, and I knew I wanted to be successful. And, you know, people are chatting and stuff, and I give them a hard time. I wound up making friends, but, you know, I was a supply sergeant. I was used to telling people knock it off or whatever. And so that lady, at that time, I wasn't sure I was going to continue school. I figured I could just go to, you know, the Border Patrol and figure out another way to get promoted. But she made me feel like I really did fit in. And then my supervisor that cared enough to notice things about me, share them with me, and help me correct my path instead of going into another like pseudo-military organization. They changed my life. And so I've been trying to pay that kind of stuff forward. That's what the culture of care means to me. And I will pass it on to Catherine.
Thank you, James. Hi, Diane. Thank you. Thanks to James and Tony for sharing your insights. I loved seeing just the facts about our student population. And then James, hearing how you use the culture of care, not only in your day job, but in your night job as well. And so I'm going to take a little bit of a different approach here. So I want to just invite you all to take a deep breath, take in all that was just shared, and hold it in a special space somewhere in your body, so that we can switch gears here slightly. So let me share my screen here. Of course, like when you have to share, you can't really find the button that you need to get to quickly. 1 second, I'll get my life together. Okay. So as Diane shared, my name is Catherine Myers. I am the manager of faculty engagement here at UAGC, and I'm also a trained coactive coach. And so during my talk today, I'm going to use that lens to get us engaged in thinking about how we design a culture of self-care. What does that look like here? And how can we ensure that we are giving that to our students? So when Diane first asked me to be part of this session, I was like, yeah, sure, I have some time. I can fit it in. But inside, I felt like this. Absolutely, 100%. I want to do this. I am ready to do this. I think I had this reaction, not because I'm some sort of self-care boundary setting expert, and could impart some knowledge to all of you that will now, at the end of our time together, give you this huge zen. Because spoiler alert, I'm not a self-care boundary setting expert. I think that feeling popped into me because this is an area I've been curious to explore here. over the, probably since last October with talking about Power of One. Earlier this year, we had our Power of One faculty focus groups. Now we have Culture of Care. We've spent so much time talking about what the culture of care could look like for our students. But in my opinion, we're missing out on an opportunity to explore what the culture of care could look like for our faculty. So over the next few slides, I hope to offer ideas that will empower you, all of you, associate faculty, full-time faculty, here and elsewhere. Offer ideas that will empower you to take action to create your own culture of self-care. Now, self-care has been getting a lot of buzz over the past few years, and we know why. This pandemic has upended all of our lives in different ways. We've experienced the impacts of it in various ways, but it still changed all of us. It made us stop. We were forced to stop and to think about things differently. And while self-care is a very personal thing, and I imagine if I polled the group right now, we'd have different ideas. We'd all say different things. I argue that self-care is more than taking a bubble bath, going for a walk, taking a nap, binge watching a show. They are all wonderful things, and I do partake in each and every one of those, and then some. But to me, in thinking about self-care is taking deliberate actions to ensure our overall well-being. And in thinking about this, thinking about our work here, I believe there are two deliberate actions we can take to start making the shift to embody a culture of self-care. And so step one is to reflect. When we begin in a space of reflection, we give ourselves the gift of time and space to think about our life and how we want to move through it. Reflection can provide you the opportunity to get crystal clear on how you want to be and do in the classroom and in your life. So to get into the mindset of reflecting on the culture of self-care, ask yourself these three questions. What do I want? What's important to me? How do I want to be? Now, when working through these questions, I have a suggestion, and that's try not to censor yourself. I feel that many of us in the world, I will certainly speak for myself, I censor. I jot answers down to these questions like, no, that's not it. That's not the perfect answer. I invite you to go with the flow and jot down whatever comes to mind for each of these questions. And then when you feel that you've thoroughly addressed each question, you can go back later and review and refine. Now, what's important about this step is to be intentional, taking that time to pause and think. Carve out time in your day. I know our lives are busy, but even just carving out 5 minutes a day to consider these questions could be beneficial. Through this reflection, you will begin to uncover your core values, those guiding principles that have been simmering inside of you, pulling you to the actions and the decisions that can bring meaning to your life. Now, some of you may already be familiar. You could probably name your core values. Others, if you're new to this language, I have a link here on the slide. I've also posted it in Whova, and I'll post it in the chat when we're done speaking, when I'm done speaking today. So this is a personal values assessment. If you Google core values, there are numerous resources for you. This is one that I've used in my own work to uncover my core values. So I recommend it, and it's free. And again, with this, don't censor yourself when you're answering those questions. So that next step in creating this culture of self-care is to set boundaries. When you are clear on what you want, on how you want to be now and later, and have named your values, you can begin to experiment with setting boundaries. Now, setting boundaries will look different for all of us. And me, the number one people pleaser in the whole wide universe, this is a struggle for me. So the way that I approach boundaries could be different for someone else. But here are just some general suggestions to get started, whether you are expert level or novice. When crafting your boundaries, keep these 3 things in mind. Start small. It will be easier to speak to these boundaries and maintain them. Ask yourself, what is the smallest action you can take to get to what you need, to what you want? The second aspect when crafting your boundaries is to communicate them. Share what you are doing with others. So if this is helpful to maybe talk with a close friend, a family member, a coworker. Talk to them about why you're doing this and what you hope to achieve. When communicating, be sure that you are clear. Leave no room for misinterpretation, as this clarity will help you uphold your boundaries and ensure that others are aware as well. And finally, pay attention. Notice how you feel once you start incorporating those boundaries. What's changing? How are you feeling? How are you engaging with the world and the people around you? So once you've uncovered what's important to you, you've named your values and begun to insert your boundaries, you can begin to level up with these next set of questions as they relate to the university's culture of care. Just as there's no one-size-fits-all approach to support students in this initiative, there's no one way for the university to support faculty in adopting these behaviors. So here's where you can take ownership over this new way of being and doing with your students in a way that allows you to make a meaningful connection to your own personal values and beliefs. Responding to these questions is a way for you to craft your own solutions to some of the challenges you may face in adopting this initiative. So ask yourself, what does self-care and boundary setting look like for you in this learning environment? What's possible for you in this area while still meeting your course expectations? How can you create your own boundaries within the university's definition of culture of care? No matter where you want to begin to develop your self-care and boundary setting skills, keep in mind that you are doing this to ensure your own well-being so that you can take care of others and live your life in a way that is meaningful to you. Now, as I said in the beginning, I am not an expert in this area, and I have only begun my own self-discovery journey to see how prioritizing my own well-being fits into my life. And I can share some positive changes in my overall mood and my motivation. I've declared these boundaries to my manager, to my team, to my family, and they have been supportive in this endeavor because they know why it's so important to me. So remember, you are not required to set yourself on fire to keep other people warm. And so this is just the tip of the iceberg. 10 minutes is not enough time to dig into and engage with these ideas. I would love to continue to build on this conversation and perhaps design something that all faculty can benefit from. So if something I've shared here piqued your interest, please feel free to reach out to me. And one final note while I have you all here, because I would be remiss if I didn't mention it, and it relates to this topic. The self-reflection activity for faculty has officially launched. This is an optional activity for all faculty, but has the potential to have a powerful and positive impact on your connection to the university, on your connection to yourself, and your connection to your students. So you can access this activity now in your faculty portal. Thank you.
That was awesome. And by the way, Catherine, you have a voice that is like a massage. So
Oh, thank you.
wonderful.
I hope everyone also had that bonus that you feel a little bit relaxed then, perhaps. My husband would disagree.
Well, we have different voices. I actually had a question for both you and James real quick, and then everybody else can sort of jump in because I'm sure everybody has questions for everyone. So James, I've gone to you before when I've been frustrated, and you've helped me not have a knee-jerk reaction with a student. And Catherine, you talked about, self-care, and even with Tony, to take care of each other. Who should like, sometimes somebody just needs to vent for 10 minutes to somebody else who understands. And is there an option for faculty here with that?
I would say that our EAP, you can reach counselors there. The advocates are for students.
Yes.
And we do get several. There are 3 of us on the team, and we have a manager. So we're really not the place. However, part of me, reaching out to more faculty and getting out there more is to meet faculty. And, as a colleague, I met with some other adjunct faculty and actually made videos for my course. I think it's important that we connect with one another and feel part of a community. But the EAP program is what you're asking for there.
Diana, I'm curious, can you expand on vent? Vent, like struggling?
No, I think just it feels like everything's gone wrong in 1 week and you just need to let it out, and it's just commiserating basically. So to say I vented to Tony the other day, I apologize. But like just saying, like, I just need to get this out so I can move forward. That's it, nothing more. And so I didn't know because I just vent to whoever I can now. Not often, but it's just whenever, like, if something I've been struggling with it and I don't want to bother certain people, and I talk to somebody, like all 3 of you, unfortunately, have gotten me venting for like 5 minutes. I'm just curious what resources might be available is all.
I think I asked just to kind of talk more about venting, because there are a few ways to tackle this, and I think it will depend on the person who needs to get it out. The quickest, easiest way is to write it out on paper. You don't have to censor yourself at all there. You can write all of the things you need to say. You can talk to yourself if you are free. I frequently do that. But then there are other ways. We have in teams, we have the community of practice channel, where our faculty have an opportunity to engage with their peers in their program, in other programs. Now, I'm not saying that's the page to type everything out and vent for all to see, but that's one way to build connections and to meet other people, because this is an isolating way to work. And then I know that our team of consultants are happy to help faculty, to be there to listen and offer a solution for them. Don't worry, I'm not saying everyone come to the team and vent every day. That's not what I'm saying. But those are just some things that came to mind, Diane, for your question on how to talk through what's happening in their life. And I am always happy to talk as well. So feel free to call me. I get lonely.
And I would say too, just to add to that if you're an associate faculty member and you're having issues with the course, curriculum or something that is happening as relates to the academic pieces of a course, your lead faculty are a great, or core faculty are a great resource, and really part of their duties as full-time faculty within academics is to support associate faculty in the classroom. So I say, you know, if there are things specifically that you need clarification on related to, you know, grading, related to an assignment, I would certainly encourage you to reach out to your full-time faculty or core faculty member who is overseeing that course.
I think that there is a special fear with maybe with associate faculty, and I don't want to speak for everyone because, and as much as I absolutely adore all the bosses I have, because I have a couple, I know how swamped people are and I don't want to bother them. And I think there's a fear of, look, if I'm bothering somebody too much, they're going to not want to deal with me anymore because of, you know, it's just a contract basis. So I would imagine similar to how students are afraid to contact faculty and we have to reach out to them. I think associate faculty can sometimes be afraid and want to reach out to somebody a little more neutral.
I can certainly appreciate that in other environments. I have certainly experienced that feeling and belief as well. But I want to reiterate that the culture of care is holistic in nature. It is scaled beyond the specific interaction of a faculty member and a student. It is now really foundationally, how do we take care of each other? And so I personally, I would be very disappointed that our associate faculty felt that they did not have the ability to reach out to a lead faculty, a core faculty member, a department chair, or myself, certainly, if there was an issue that needed attention. We need to really address the culture within the institution if there are faculty that feel that way, and that is certainly that's a area of growth for me that we continue to focus in on the environment that happens in between the interactions between all of our faculty members. So I know that Dr. Steinberg, who I believe is here attending as a participant, not a panelist, but she is certainly an advocate of the one faculty model. We are a team, and we serve our students. And at the end of the day, student success, we can only maximize all of our roles if we work together and we fill this really collaborative environment to support students.
Wonderful. Can we have any questions, please? Anybody have something they would like to ask? Because if not, I'm just going to keep asking questions. So I'm sure somebody has something. So, Tony, when I was talking
I
to
see
you,
someone.
somebody, yes,
no.
okay, please, no, come.
No, never mind.
I just didn't know if it was okay if I unmuted or not. I was supposed to put it in the chat.
Yeah.
I don't know if I can frame this as a question per se, but I'm interested more, Catherine, in going through the reflection process where the first step is defining for yourself what your values are. What advice might you have? And I mean, it's okay if you don't have a solid answer right now, but just, I guess, brainstorming about an exercise for identifying then what the intersections of your personal values are with the caring culture of whatever institution you're working at. Because I think you made a really good point about how all of the elements of the exercise you gave us will look different for each person. That means then that how we define values for ourselves will look different from the values of the institution we're at, but that doesn't mean that they're necessarily different fundamentally. And it can be difficult sometimes to see the cross section, I guess. So, do you have any advice about, if we might find ourselves at some sort of impasse, like, oh, am I really misaligning with this? Maybe the answer is no. We just need to peel away those onion layers to find the intersection. Is that making sense?
Yes, I think I'm getting what you're saying here. So what came to mind? So in identifying that intersection, and I'll start with an easy one first. Someone may have a core value of communication. That is something that's important to them. They do all that they can to ensure that they are clearly communicating about whatever it is they're communicating about. That's what their truth is. That's what guides them in their work with an institution. Now, for us, at least with culture of care, the definition is spelled out beautifully. There isn't a lot of guesswork there, but if there wasn't an indication of maybe some guesswork, a suggestion would be to go through and read that company's mission statement, their vision statement, their purpose statement, and try to see what connections you have to your value of communication, because it may have the different word, but the meaning and the essence is still there. And so that's where being more familiar with the idea of values, the definitions of them, the quiz that I've given here, when it gives you your 5 core values, to give you your 5 top core values, it tells you what it looks like, how it could show up, how you lean into it. Using those suggestions and comparing them to whatever you're comparing can help identify if they truly are aligned. And let's be honest, no one is going to be perfectly aligned with anything that they do, with any institution. There's always going to be a give and take. But if at the end of the day, if you go through these exercises, you define your boundaries, and you have this feeling, you know when your boundaries are being crossed, when your values aren't being met. It's a feeling. And so that's just a very quick example. I hope I kind of got to what you were getting at there. And of course, I will marinate on this later. And in the middle of the night, I will jump up in bed and have a better response. And I'll type it up for you.
No, thank you. I appreciate it.
Thanks.
Do you have anybody who would like to ask? Everybody can pop up if they'd like and turn on their screens. Up to you. So, Catherine, I was talking to you the other day, and I know James doesn't agree with my my time zone issue, but I do give out my cell number, and I say you can only use this to make an appointment, but it's only during these times after I got 3 calls before 7 a.m. on Saturday, and then 2 calls and 2 texts before 6 a.m. on Sunday, which I'm like, okay, no, we got to stop that. And it's for setting up meetings. And for me, it's about giving students, making sure that they have any avenue they need to come to the table, but not moving the table, as Tony, sort of a different analogy, but by passing those who haven't learned or earned anything. It's not moving it towards them, but it's giving them the avenues they need to get there, to sit there. And so that's one thing I do is I've set boundaries now against, you can only text, and it can only be to set up a meeting. Everything else must go into Canvas. And it's hard sometimes to stick to that, where I just want to, where they ask me a question and I'm like, oh, I want to respond. Nope, it's got to go into Canvas. So, yeah. And do you do that, James and Tony and Catherine? Do you guys let students contact your cell at all, or how do you prefer to interact with with students who sort of realize at the last minute that they're not going to have a project ready because they don't understand the directions.
That's a great question, because I think reflecting on Catherine's presentation related to, or her comments about self-care and setting boundaries and things like that. I think, it has to work for you as an associate faculty member. However you create that flow of communication. For me, whatever works, in a lot of ways, whatever works for students. There are certainly times when, I think we're all busy. One of the great benefits of our faculty body, and especially our associate faculty body, is that they're practitioners. They're working in the fields in which they're teaching. And so, obviously understanding that our faculty have other jobs and families and things like that. But I think, to your point about creating an opportunity to either make an appointment or to have communication by text or through email, again, I think whatever works for you. But I always really, when I'm teaching, to create an environment where I think this is the important thing, where our students feel safe to connect with faculty when they need help and support. And I know we're coming to the end of our hour, and there was one idea that I really want this group to resonate on about the culture of care moving forward, is that we heard this morning with Dr. Kezar and her research about at-promise students, and then Dr. Newton Miller's research about students of color and the at-potential populations. A lot of our students, they have a difficult time being proactive in reaching out, and whether it's a fear that they're going to be judged by faculty, whether they don't have that agency in order to reach out to our faculty. One of the great outcomes of a culture of care is this idea that faculty can be proactive, to reach out to students when they see a need and they see a student that needs some support. Diane and I talked a little bit yesterday about what culture of care is and what it isn't. Culture of care is not an initiative where a student comes in week one, doesn't turn anything in for 5 weeks, and then submits 5 assignments on the last week of the course. That is not what culture of care is. What culture of care is, in my opinion, and I'm just one voice here, is that if you see a student who is struggling in week 1 or 2, that a faculty member is proactive, whether it's through the use of signals or an email, and reaches out to that student and says, "Hey, what's going on? How can I help you? Is there something that you need?" So that, potentially you can avoid that scenario where in 5 weeks a student turns in 5 assignments and hoping for an incomplete. There's so many different aspects of this that we can talk about: financial aid and students who default on loans and things like that because of failing grades. But at the heart of, for me, again, the heart of the culture of care is this disposition that we care about our students and that we support our students to be successful. And then certainly when we think about our institution, that we care about each other, and that we're all here because this is the greatest university that I've ever been a part of, and that we really do support students and we support each other. And so anyway, again, I've shared a little too much and taken too much time, but that really is something that I want us to take away from this time together.
Okay, I want to thank everybody, especially the panel, who was wonderful enough to be on the panel. And I felt so blessed when everybody said yes, they would do this. And thank you for asking questions and for listening. And I wanted to give a little talk late at the time about ways to manage the hours you are allocated, but wasn't able to. If anybody wants to send me an email on that, I can reach out. But this was an amazing panel. Thank you, everyone, so much for being part of this with us.
Thank you, Diane, for organizing it.
Absolutely.
Yes, thank you.
Have a
Thanks,
good
everybody.
day.
Bye. Thank you.